is to order. Everyone is present. I would like to mention that tonight is Mr. Rick Sanders' first meeting. I'd like to welcome Ricky here. Appreciate you coming out tonight, Rick.
Well, I appreciate it.
So we have a pretty healthy agenda tonight, and so we'll go ahead and get going. Our first item is going to be superintendent's comments. Dr. Brown, I'd like to hear from you this time.
Thank you, Mr. Clarcy. Well, the school year is upon us, and we've started. Today was day 5 for our students. So we started last Friday, and we're off. I had an opportunity on last Friday with Mr. Cooper to visit all 11 of our schools. So both of us put on our walking shoes and made the trek to all 11. I've had an opportunity this week, as well as our district staff, to visit a large portion of our schools and see the great things that are going on there each and every day. And really proud of the work that our teachers are doing and that our students are doing, and we're glad that they're underway. During pre-planning, one of the things that we had an opportunity to do is have a social at each high school. So Dr. Matt Stratemeyer at East Jackson Comprehensive High School and Mr. Jason Lester at Jackson County High School hosted a social for their feeder schools. So had an opportunity to get those teachers together, faculty and staff members together, and have time to collaborate, and as well as share some ice cream and candy at each of those locations. So a great time there. I want to say, I think on all of our minds at the start of the school years, the importance of safety and security within our schools. I want to reemphasize our partnership with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Mangum. I know she and I have spoken almost every day since school started about one issue or another. And I want to say how appreciative we are of Cindy Obar and their staff and the SROs that we have within our schools that protect us each and every day and work with us. We continue to work on traffic issues around some of our schools. Appreciate the Sheriff's Department and their partnership as far as directing traffic for us. And we continue to track how long it's taking our car riders to get in, as well as how long it takes for us to unload and load buses each and every day. So continue to work on that. One of the things that we had today was a fun event. Our new teachers had a cookie social here at Empower. We welcomed all of our new teachers and gave them an opportunity to connect after a week of school, connect with their fellow new teachers. A few reminders I want to remind the board about. Next Thursday night at 7 o'clock is our Jackson County High School and East Jackson scrimmage football game. It's at 7 p.m. I want to invite the community out to that event. It will be at Jackson County High School, and we're excited about football season kicking off, as well as all of our athletics. As I was looking at schedules today, we've got softball teams starting up this week, volleyball teams, cross country, and competition cheer. One of the things that's always fun as an ex-high school principal and now as a superintendent is going and watching our bands perform as they get ready through band camp to get the year off started. And so both of our high school bands are ready to go, and we're looking forward to a great season on all those events. I do want to call the board's attention to 3 dates. September the 8th for a budget and millage hearing. September the 12th at 6:30 for a millage hearing, right, at our board meeting time. And September the 16th, Friday morning at 7:30 in the morning, the millage and tentative budget approval. So this Monday will be our official August board meeting, and the representatives from South Jackson, Ms. Brookshire and her team from South Jackson Elementary will be presenting to us and sharing the great work that's happening in South Jackson Elementary.
Is the meeting on the 16th, is that going to be at Empower or at the central office?
It will be at Empower right here.
They'll all be here.
They'll all be here. All those need to be.
Okay, good. Switch for public.
That concludes my comments. Ms. Dundor with the teaching and learning report.
Good evening, board members. It is evening. I will start by inviting our CTAE director, Mr. Todd Schultz, up to share our plan and get your approval for our plan going forward. We'll do the data for sure, but we'll do Mr. Schultz first just to talk through our Perkins plan and get your approval.
Good evening, The reason I'm addressing you tonight is the Perkins 5 law requires that all CTA funding are up to date and approved by the local application by the Board of Education. I'm asking you to approve the application at our board meeting on Monday. Shared with you is our actual Jackson County Local Perkins 5 application that goes to the state. It's a comprehensive local needs assessment, or also CLNA. It was created, first of all, we pulled this data from resources, business and industry, our industry leaders, our CTA advisory council members. The plan identifies, analyzes, and performs the data from our schools and community. It examines the labor market and also the alignment, the size, scope, and quality. When you talk about size, scope, and quality, that includes the number of pathways that are offered in our schools, the number of completers in each one of the pathways, the credentials of value, which used to be known as end-of-pathway assessments that we used to do, and then also the equity and access for all of our students to attend. The application examines our facilities, our equipment, and it also looks at the relevance, the safety, and making sure that everything is up to industry standards. Looking at it also looks at participation in our career technical student organizations, which sometimes we call CTSOs. They're an intercurricular part. They're not an extracurricular part of our programs. They also show the opportunities and how they're preparing those students in leadership for the future. The last part of the data that's on the plan examines the recruitment, retention, and the professional development of our teachers, which we all know is an important part, especially at this time. All of these areas are pulled together, and then it determines the root cause of issues that need to be addressed. Then we have to create goals and identify our overarching needs for our programs. I use these overarching needs to formulate our Perkins budgets that we go forward for our programs. The very end of the application is actually where they talk about our core indicators. Our core indicators are actually state performance areas, and their targets, and also the state targets are also identified at that level. I created on the end, there's actually a 3-year comparison of our our core indicators, and I'm very proud to say that we have met all of our core indicators except one, and that is actually credentials of value, which is our end-of-pathway assessments. Really, the reason why we didn't pass, or I guess get over our target, was because of COVID. We haven't even put state data in for the past 2 years on our EOPA. So there was a reason why we met, and we did meet it prior to COVID. Each year, the CLNA will be evaluated and adjusted as the needs of our system, and also very important. And lastly, just to keep it on your radar, on October 4th, I'm really excited to say that we will be going through our Perkins federal review this year. So there's a lot of things and a lot of documents that I'll be pulling together and submitting to the state. We will have business and industry actually meeting. It'll be a virtual review, which is very interesting in itself. But we'll have business and industry leaders that will actually meet with us and actually have discussions with our state. But does anybody have any questions on me? Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Schultz may be the only person I know who's excited to go through a federal review. So I'm excited, Mr. Schultz, for the work that you'll put into going through that federal review. Board members, the next item under the teaching and learning agenda, just a reminder from our last meeting, are those items that we lay on the table that need your approval, those policies for complaint resolution processes for our parents. And so that will be an action item going forward into our next board meeting. Just a reminder of those documents, and they're there for your review again. And now the part that I get excited about, so I do understand, Mr. Schultz, is data. We have some data to present to you, quite an extensive packet of data just to give you a look at where we ended the school year and looking at some data that has come in over the summer with our advanced placement, our IB scores. But I'd like to draw your attention to this slide here, which is something that we're really proud of, and it is our balanced scorecard. And that is, balanced scorecards are used in business and industry to keep score and monitor your progress, really to watch your growth happen and to know where you are and to set goals and to set targets and to keep track. And you remember several years ago, those of us who've been doing this a little while, this was something that was pushed out to educators by the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, and we all had balanced scorecards, and we all were watching, ourselves grow. And so we have brought that into, and thank you, Dr. Brown, for bringing that into our county, and really having us come together around the table and talk about where we are and do some action planning and some goal setting about where we want to be. Each of our schools, our principals have duplicated this document, and so each of our schools has their own balanced scorecard, and they're using that to tie into their school improvement plans as they set school level improvement goals, and we'll track those for the next 5 years. These goals will be important for us as we go into an accreditation review in a year and a half. And as we move into writing our next strategic plan. So this will set the stage for us to have some conversations and some honest conversations about growth and to set some goals and set them high. The next portion requires me to get the mouse, so excuse me. So the other part of your packet, board members, is a PDF copy of our data presentation, our slideshow regarding our data for this school year as we ended 22. Excuse me, back up. Oh, I may need assistance. I'm going to let you take that. Scroll up top. What we have for you is in the beginning some data that let's start at the very beginning. We back to the first slide. So with some literacy data, we'll begin with an overview of our literacy data for this past school year. And what you're going to see are those benchmark grades. You're going to see third grade literacy data, reading data, so you're going to know on grade level reading how many of our students or percentages of our students are on grade level or above. As well as percentage of 3s and 4s. And Mr. Hollett, that's for you because that was the question you asked me last year and I didn't forget. Percentage of 3s or 4s on our Georgia milestones in grades 3, in grades 8, 5, 8, and in our benchmark, in our high school end of grade courses or end of course assessments. Some highlights for that, board members, as we work through technical difficulties will be a look at our gifted data. So we start with, here we go. Go ahead and move through to that first slide. So you have some achievement data for IB and for AP. One of the highlights I'll share with you here in this area is that we did have each of our diploma candidates for International Baccalaureate did receive. So 100% of our students who attempted that International Baccalaureate diploma did receive the IB diploma. You also have in your packet some data on enrollment numbers for those courses. In your packet as well, board members, you have some math data. And I'll just point out as you look through it, because if you're like me and you get excited, I like to settle in and just have the data in front of me to take a look at it and absorb it. But some highlights I'll bring to your attention are our American Lit EOC scores. I like to talk about the story our data tells. And in this case, our data is telling the story that we are pulling ourselves out of a learning loss pattern and our kids are bouncing back from what they've experienced over the past several years. We have work to do and we know it and we own it and we're okay with it. We know how to do it and we're ready to move forward with that. I'd like to also highlight our third grade math scores, and that's slide 17, I think. All of our math outperformed the state. And we're competitive in the RESA. Our 8th grade science scores, or the word I'll use for those are, we excelled and outperformed the RESA and the state by a landslide. Our kids did very well in 8th grade science and in social studies in each of those content areas. We outperformed the state, we outperformed the RESA. So multiple celebrations there we go. So as you look through these slides, again, you guys just scroll slowly. We're here, this is 2022. And this is JCSS, and this is where we want to be. And this is our RESA and our state following those. So 3rd grade math milestones we're very proud of, and you can see if you look at pre-COVID 2018, we did skip 2020. We didn't think you would mind. But as we get to 2022, we're above our performance in 2018. So very proud of the growth in mathematics. Very proud of our growth in our end of course American Lit scores. Very proud of our science and social studies as we move through outperforming our RESA and outperforming, in many cases, or outperforming the state in every case and outperforming our RESA in cases as well. As you look over that later when you get home, you'll also see some opportunities, and we know they're there. We have some opportunities to continue to raise expectations for all learners. Our gifted learners can achieve at a much more rigorous rate than they are. Our students with disabilities can achieve at rates beyond what we're currently seeing. And so we know that, and we are grateful for the resources that you have infused into the system. As Simpson, Shirley, and I talked earlier, using those resources to grow our teachers, to equip them. And you've heard me talk about professional learning. Everything's a professional learning opportunity. But to grow our teachers, because that is what will sustain student learning, is teachers who know, are competent in the work they're doing, who know what to do next and know how to identify students' needs and meet them. And so that is our focus. We also know that we have to continue to be laser focused on literacy. We are doing well in math. There has been tremendous growth in our math. We have to laser focus on literacy without experiencing what I call the Tupperware effect. So if you've ever tried to close a Tupperware container, you pop down one side and the other side pops up. Our job is to make sure no sides pop up while we're focusing on one content area, that we don't lose sight of our growth and our opportunities in other content areas. So any questions? I know this is a lot in our snafu in our presentation, but you do have that information in front of you, and I'd be happy to talk about any questions you have, Mr. Hunt.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I need to turn this on. Okay. Hold it down.
Green, yes.
Yep, I'm green.
Green means go.
So, 2 questions.
All right.
First about advanced placement.
Yes, sir.
So I see you have projections for the IB.
In terms of numbers, yes, sir.
Any projections for APs?
I will get those for you.
And then as
And
well.
those are conversations we're currently having as we talk about growth for our high school principals. Actually met this week to talk about AP and IB and optimizing those courses and making sure, again, as we talked before, that we're not pulling from one to be the other.
Sure. And as well about gifted. I'm a big proponent of making sure that we have enough for kids that are gifted. So are we able to grow those numbers as well? I know there's some schools that have, in the past, problems not having certified teachers. Is that something we can help them to accomplish?
We are currently helping that. We have the teaching and learning through our budget. We ask principals as they hire new teachers, and as we have teachers in our staff, we have surveyed for reading endorsements, for gifted endorsements, and for ESOL endorsements. And so we have a cohort that Ms. Sane will direct, because she leads our cohorts for those professional endorsements into those endorsement that process for this year. And so yes, sir. And we are very aware Martha does a fantastic job of making sure that the students who we have identified as gifted are being served by teachers who are also gifted certified, and that's a funding piece for us as well, not only having the right teacher with the skill set to be able to serve those students. We have a special education teacher who's reached out and inquired about gifted certification, because we have students who are dual exceptional. and can be served. And so we are pushing into that professional learning opportunity. And the other piece of that, Mr. Hollett, is making sure we're identifying those students.
So that's my follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
So kids can only be tested every 2 years? Is that?
The DOE gives us guidance that the data is good for 2 years, and so it's for it to be valid, it lives within that 2-year window. However, if we have students who we believe need testing within that window, we certainly have the flexibility to test them. Yes, sir. Any other questions?
I do.
All
I
right.
wanted to see if you could explain, or just tell me this, I see the number of students, gifted students we have on 1187. You listed the number of special education students at 1,400. But I wasn't sure what the gifted section / classes meant, K through 12, 4979.
Sure. So that is the number of sections in our schedules that we offer that are modeled to serve gifted learners or students with disabilities. So in the high school, an example would be, I teach American Lit, but I also have a section of American Literature that is specifically dedicated to gifted students. And those are distinguished by course numbers. And we have those same sections. I can give you that data as well for students in a remedial section or students who are in, an EIP section in elementary. So we keep track of those sections again because of QBE, because we want to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's for funding, but also because we want to make sure that we have the teachers and the staff to serve the students.
I had looked over some of this earlier,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
with this IB program, I know you've given us some numbers of how many you expect. Do we have any new candidates to enroll in that program as school starting this year?
I will get that information from Mr. Westner for you. We're watching enrollment numbers hourly,
Yes.
and so I'll check on those numbers for you this week.
This is just reflecting the ones that we have in the program now.
Currently, yes, ma'am. And that projection also comes from those students who are 10th and 11th graders,
Yes.
who put in that cohort, we expect that number of graduates.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That concludes teaching and learning.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Hargreaves?
Good evening. So once again, we're going to give you a quick update on enrollment. It's always good when you finally see those students in the building and get to meet those faces. We've been talking about numbers all summer, but we are super glad to have 9,883 with us in seats. So we simplified, we kind of streamlined a little bit. We've been updating you month by month throughout the summer, so we kind of streamlined and put where we were at the end of last year and gave you where we are in terms of enrollment at the beginning of this year. So up 550 students since the end of last year, 2021-22. Out of that, let me give you a few just kind of nice to know facts. We had 877 new students to our district, so new to Jackson County. We had 500 students transferred out of Jackson County. So, and I want to give all credit to Mark Wilson, who first of all has been daily updating this and working with our schools and our registrars, because it's so important to clean up that data every single day. And so just so that we can meet the personnel needs and really know who we have with us, where they've gone, who's coming back, starting on a Friday, sometimes that first day, you might not get everybody. So Martha has really been working with our school teams and our registrars to call families, make sure that we're checking on everybody and that we know where they are. So this is a good cleaned up number for you here. So as I mentioned, 500 students transferred out. We had 618 new pre-K and kindergarten kiddos with us this year. So that's always exciting to have those first-time school experience. And so again, going back to our number of 877 new students to our district, just a breakdown of those, 220 of them were high school students, 204 middle school students, and 453 elementary. So Lots of new families to our district, and that is super exciting. So, of course, kind of working through all of the pieces of that and just meeting the needs. It's been great to be out in schools and just see how all of that is playing out in the school buildings these last 5 days. Any questions about enrollment or updates? All right. Dr. Waxter, I'm going to turn it over to him for just a minute. He's been doing some great work out in our schools, and so he's going to share a little bit with you about some of his safety walkthroughs.
Okay, good evening, board members. So for the past week and in the upcoming weeks, we have been doing safety walkthroughs in all of our schools. To give you a little background about that, who's participating in it is myself, Mr. Schofield, as well as the local SRO at that school, as well as the supervisors, one of the supervisors of the SRO is going with us, and then local administration. And so what we were doing, we were walking through the school, going over safety plans, going over how they conduct their fire drills, and just to kind of just see where we can improve. A couple of things that I've noticed during these drills, or not drills, but walkthroughs. First, I wanted to touch base on the SROs. One thing I've noticed, and I feel like you guys need to know this, is our SROs know their schools. Okay? When I talk to an SRO, they know exactly where all doors are, where all entries, where all exits are. Best way to go when there's any kind of emergency, they know. And that brought a lot of peace to me to know how well informed they are. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the SROs is that there's this willingness to work with the local school administration. Every school I've been to so far, you can see that partnership being welcomed, and that there's constant communication between SROs and local administration so that they know that any kind of emergency were to happen, they're on the same ship. So I felt very good about that. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is about our principals. The principals with whom I've discussed their plans. Number one, there is so much care that they have for our students here at Jackson County Schools. Immediately with our conversations, I see how quickly they are to just want to know how is the best way to keep our kids safe in any kind of way. And I have appreciated that so much, and I've noted it in my notes going through. And then the other thing that I appreciate about the principals is just their willingness to improve. What else can we do? And you see something that we haven't seen. And that has just been so meaningful to me to go in there and that they are putting themselves forward just to say, look, we need to be the best we can do. So those are a couple of things we have seen as we've gone through it. We still have several schools to do. We've been through about 3 schools so far. These will continue until the end of August, and then we'll start the next round with something else. Any questions or comments?
So what do you have in store for after the new year and we roll into the next year? I shared with Dr. Brown, I went through some schools at the end of last year, how things did at the end of the year. And you anticipate, I'm happy to see this, I'm just wondering if you thought about what you did second.
So I think the biggest thing is just communication. One thing that each principal has talked to me about is that they want to sit down with me and with SRO to go do a thorough investigation and analysis of their safety plans. When they do have drills, I would like to, in the new year, to be there to kind of do a walkthrough. We're going to have two lockdowns, one in the fall, one in the spring, everywhere. Both of those, we'd like to be there to get feedback to see how they go. I agree. In the spring, it gets a little crazy. And we kind of put things like we're trying to get testing done and all that stuff. But I will continue to communicate with them to be sure we're on where we need to be. It's not we go in there, we come out with it. I'm one who constantly communicates. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we have an SRO in each school? I know we have high schools and middle schools, but the elementary schools.
We do. With the elementary schools, there's an SRO assigned to each school. Okay, and so in the elementary school, there is one that is constantly floating around to be there. There's also one that is assigned.
So they're on campus every day?
No, sir.
They're not?
Well, I say every day, I don't know. They are there, but not the whole day because they float around.
Can piggyback off of that?
Okay.
I thought they might be shared, but they were on the Gum Springs and Westville. There are SROs on those campuses every day, is mine.
That's, yes. I'm thinking with the high school, Frank, thinking that they have an office there, they just throw it.
How many SROs do we have?
11 or 10 SROs.
Like the high school, does that include someone at Empower also with
Yes,
an
ma'am.
SRO there?
There is an SRO there, Officer Parks,
That's what I
and they help out with the alternative schools.
Do you need more SROs? To have one in every school?
I would love that.
What's preventing that? Is it, you can't get them to the sheriff's department or not?
So Sheriff Mangum and I have talked about this on numerous occasions. So what she's communicated with me is the vacancies that she has in the sheriff's department. And I appreciate, and it's kind of what we're calling to their attention, is how appreciative we are of what the sheriff's department does for us each and every day, and the relationship that we've built over time, so that anytime we call them, they're always there.
Sure, mine was awesome. But I do think we're talking about safety and security, we need to work toward an SRO in each school. That's just my opinion, but we need someone in each school. And I understand her jail and deputy, how far she's down, but we might be doing an alternative because of recent events and, but good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wexler. I'm going to pass out, I have a quick packet to give you on Raptor, which is another layer for safety. It's not anything new, but just something that we are making sure is in place in all of our schools. So just kind of thinking about that teamwork between our building leaders, our district staff, and our SROs, we really have just inspected and want to make sure that we have every safeguard in place to keep our schools safe and our students safe. So one of the things that we have had for a while in our district, as you know, is our Raptor system, which is a visitor and volunteer management system. And it's, as visitors come in, they scan their license, and it does a search against all offender and sexual predator databases. And there are actually levels that we can do with this. So with all of our visitors into the school, it's really just putting that safeguard back in place. As we know with COVID, we didn't have a lot of visitors to the schools, and so this was just something that wasn't needed during that time. We actually put it in place prior to COVID. And so this year, we've just really been partnering with the schools, and our technology department has been out and making sure that everything is up and running for our Raptor systems, and that our front office staffs are trained, and our school admin and our sheriff's department actually partnered with us in this protocol for then what we do if there is an alert with a visitor. So this is really helpful. I just wanted you to have this. It's helpful to our administrators to know if I get that alert, then what happens next. So this is, again, just a safeguard that we recognize this year as we're welcoming our visitors back into the buildings, that we wanted to make sure that we have that safety piece in place. And then also for our volunteers, it has an additional layer with volunteers. It's actually initiated through our district website. If a volunteer goes on there and says, I want to volunteer, it's going to take them through an automated process where they can tell us what kind of volunteering they're going to do, what schools they're going to be going to, and then it will actually take them through the background check. So for a volunteer, it's going to go a little bit deeper, and it's actually a paid background check through the Raptor system. So it really does provide that additional safeguard that we need when we have volunteers maybe working with a small group of students, or also for our chaperones for our overnight field trips and things like that. So we just feel like this is one of those pieces. It was definitely wanted to make sure that we had everything back in place this year for Raptor. So you have kind of that one-pager volunteer guide that you can take a look at, as well as that protocol. Questions? Yes.
Forgive me for asking. I was in Gum Springs the other day, and somebody mentioned this. So I want to make sure I kind of understand. This sounds like it's great, but if I go to the school and I want to have lunch with my child, elementary most likely, middle schoolers and high schoolers would be petrified if they came. But you know what I'm asking, so if I just show up, it won't do the background check, it'll just do kind of a lighter version,
Correct.
background light?
Background light.
Okay, but it did mention something on this last page, if you are a parent and you are on that list,
Correct.
can I ask this, or you guys?
That's when your school and admin and your SROs are going to talk, and they're going to identify a plan for you for how you can have access to your child and that school experience. You're probably going to be a little bit supervised, and so that team will work together on that.
So parents know this, if this is coming on, so if I am a parent, I know this is a new system, I'm just planning to go up this year, or they'll find out the first time they.
Well, it's really something that we have had in place, so we could talk about that. We haven't widely publicized because typically we always do have a process in place for signing in our visitors. Our front office staff knows our visitors, so it's really not anything different than what we've done. It's just giving us a more systematic way to make sure that we're doing that for every visitor. So I think our parents recognize and feel good about the fact that we've always had good, safe practices. Everybody has to come through the front office, sign in. We all know, state their purpose for why they're there. So it's really just putting a little safer process in place.
I like this, I think this is good, so I'm happy to, my questions aren't meant to mean that I'm excited about it, so I just wanted to know a little bit more, so.
This process does work very well. I know I work for RESA during the day, and before I was a board member, I could walk around every school and do walkthroughs at every school. Can't do it anymore since I'm a board member. I had to hire somebody else to do our accounting. But actually, there's a RSO of a different race by my same name. And every time I go into school, I tell them, okay, you're going to have somebody, it's going to alert. And the first time it happened, and I appreciate whoever did the training. They're very calm. They looked at me, and they looked at the picture, and they looked at me, and they looked at the picture, and they turned around and said, this is not you, is it? And I said, no, I'm a white male, not a black male. But it was the very same name. So people that have Johnson or Robert Johnson, probably the most common name there is, odds are that it's gonna pop up 6 or 8 folks. I go to every school in the 13 county district, and they have something, but they don't have the thing that checks the sexual register. I really appreciate that. It did my heart good to know that when I went into my grandkids' school, they had dad online, and they wanted to make sure that I wasn't that person that caused the alert. And the way they handled every school has really been awesome. Again, I've been to every single school. It was handled very well at every school, and I appreciate that. It could have been, oh God, this. It could have been worse, but it's handled very well, and I appreciate the professionalism of our central office staff. Knowing them as well, as a principal, they're the ones that take more heat than principals do for the most part. They're the ones that calm people down before you get to the administration. I really appreciate our staff at each one of our schools, and this is one of the reasons why, because of the way they handle this. One, I felt good about the protection for my kids, my grandkids, and for everybody else, for our school system. So thanks for keeping this going.
Well, and thank you for sharing that, and that's something we will continue to do, is just to work with our front office staff to make sure that there is clarity about how to handle it, but I'm glad you had a good experience with that.
They had it in every school.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hardy. Thank you, Dr. Waxter. Mr. Hooper. Updates in public relations.
As public relations comes to mind, I just want to know if Mr. Johnson won some kind of prize. I've been eyeballing that cookie, Mr. Johnson, wondering what you did to earn that.
Are we splitting that one or more?
There's a box in the back lifted from our
There
new
it
teacher
is.
social.
You let me ride in that new car. I was thinking about letting you have it. There's a box back there. The reason why it's about 6 foot long is these cookies are so big.
Thank you for scolding me. That's what I get for trying to lighten the mood. Let's move on.
Well, good evening, board. It's an honor to be here tonight, my first meeting, so thank you all for letting us be here. We had a busy start to the school year, as every division did, including communications and public relations. I want to start by highlighting that WSB TV did a live report in front of West Jackson Elementary School on the first day of school, highlighting Jackson County school system's growth and the return to school. Their live feeds were shot twice an hour for 2 hours of spot. So we have 4 times being highlighted, which is great. Led into prepackaged shots that they shot of Dr. Brown at West Jackson during open house, and also a first grade teacher at West Jackson Elementary by the name of Andrea Lowe. The interviews were really well received, and I want to take a minute to really commend Ms. Lowe, our first grade teacher, who had no knowledge at all about the interview. It was the videographer was in the classroom, really liked her, really enjoyed her mood, her personality and what she was displaying, and said, "Hey, can we interview her?" And I said, "Well, let me go ask her. Let me make sure we're good here." And she did an absolutely phenomenal job. And one of the highlights of the interview was her upbeat manner was that she said that her classroom and her schools are happy place. So I thought it represented Jackson County schools in a great light. Another thing WSB did was they provided us with a personalized weather report from meteorologist Brown Monahan. We were able to share across the social media platforms as well, so that was a great opportunity. They put a picture of Gum Springs up, and they did a private weather report for us for the first day of school. We were able to share with our students. Other media coverage, right now we're able to go, like Dr. Brown said, to all 11 schools on the first day of school. That was great. We were able to take pictures and send them out to our local media. We saw those on the newspapers. We're very appreciative of that as well. We have some other stories getting written about some new programs in schools and Empower. And obviously right now we're highlighting our big football scrimmage that we have coming up next week between East Jackson and Jackson County. Other communications, right now I've gotten to know all the media ambassadors and media specialists, communications ambassadors, and we've asked how I can help them and streamline things. So being new to education, I learned we have a lot of school holidays, a lot of school celebrations. I learned that, and so one thing we did is we kind of created a graphic for them, and we're going to streamline the process for when they want to recognize, their counselor day, their principal day, their red ribbon day, their cafeteria appreciation day. We'll create a template for them and just throw their pictures on that, share on their social media, and really help alleviate that process for them and streamline it for them. So that's all I have for you this evening. Any questions?
What about like PTAs, stuff like that? Any reaching out to them at all?
I have not yet, but I absolutely can and will. Look forward to working with all the schools. I've told all the principals. I've met with the principal as well. Told them, my phone's always on. And call me, and I'm here to help. And continuing to meet with the principals daily and weekly to try to figure out how I can be assistance.
You mentioned about the recognition days, all that. I know there's some PTA programs that really try to, whether it's for the bus drivers or for teachers or whomever, they try to help with those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Get touch. Thank you. Who else? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hoover. Ms. Dodge with our financial update.
Good evening, board members. I usually try to make my presentation short and sweet and give you a lot of good, happy information. But I feel like I say every other day now, it's that time of year. So we've got millage rate to talk about and amended budget along with our normal financials. So if you want to take a look first at our SPLOST, we continue to really do great and increase that revenue, and hopefully we'll continue that. Dr. Brown wants it to be higher, so he's told me I have to buy more shoes and shop some more on Amazon now that I live in Jackson County, and revenue will go to Jackson County, so that's my new assignment. So our SPLOST revenue again is going to be great, and it's putting us in a great place to hopefully do some more construction projects around the district. And then if we want to look at our general funds, we are right in line where we should be. The percentage of course, includes purchase orders, which are just basically open requests that have not actually been paid yet. But our actual expenditure percentage is at 8%, which is exactly where we should be at this time of year. So we are right in line where we should be. And of course, our revenue is a little low because we won't start getting that until our tax revenue starts coming in November and December. And then if we want to look at our fund balance comparison, we are looking great. We are over $3 million above where we were at this time last year, which again is going to help us with some of the construction and the growth that we are dealing with at this point, and trying to do personnel and improvements and additions and new construction to manage that growth. Are there any questions about the July financials?
I am.
Hey!
So the monies that we've been told about, that was kind of found, whatever, where would that figure into this, or should is that a conversation for our next?
What, Mr. Schofield?
All right, yep.
Yeah, about SPLOS. Is that what you're talking about, SPLOS funding and capital projects?
I think I skipped that.
Okay, yeah, advancement. So yes, Mr. Schofield will talk about that during the facilities part. But yes. And then I think we are going to look at the millage rate next. Right now, the recommendation of myself and Dr. Brown is to maintain the millage rate at the current level. We did roll it back significantly last year. It's at the lowest it's been in 15 to 20 years.
Close to 20.
I said 15 to 20, Mr. Darcy.
Oh, it's closer to 20.
Closer to
It's
20.
closer to 20.
Thank you for that correction, Mr. Darcy. But yes, it's been many years since we've had a millage rate this low, and with our growth and what we're experiencing this time, we feel like maintaining that millage rate where it is, not increasing it, but just maintaining it where it is, would be the best option for the school system at this time. Any questions or comments?
I agree with that from the military. I'll just say that out loud. Having looked at it myself and seen the growth. I'm always for lowering those, of course, but I don't ever want to raise it.
Right.
And I do worry that if we lowered it again, we would have.
We put ourselves in a position where we might have to increase it. Correct. Yes. I feel like that with the rate that it's at now is extremely competitive with surrounding counties. I mean, there are very few counties that are around us that have a millage rate that is this low. So I think that we've done a great job at being conservative and being able to maintain it there. And so if we can keep it there to address some of this growth, I think it would be the best for the school system.
I think what, to kind of echo what Mr. Hall was saying, the way we look at it, we're not just putting hay in the barn, we have some needs, and that's why we consistently being conservative and how we spend and how we budget. At least I feel like we have as long as I've been on board. Jill's been on it much longer, and she can attest to some of that, but I feel like at this point, rolling it back, considering the growth and the number of local units, we need to find a way through this, even though I fully support the conservative approach of rolling it back. I just don't think this is the time. And I had that discussion today with a constituent. I shared that with Dr. Brown before the meeting. Shared the contents of that whole conversation, but it kind of revolved around that, and I expressed my position. So I want to make sure I kind of convey that.
Well, and I'd just like to say, since I am the veteran here, a number of years ago, when we had to increase it, and we were in some real binds, we as a board at that time promised that once things got better, that we would do all that we could to give some relief and roll back. And so I was very pleased that we were able to follow through with the promise that had been made years ago. But I totally agree. We need to stay where we are. We're in a good spot right now, and we have got listening to those numbers, and we're going to have more in September. So we got to take care of our kids.
And again, you'll see in the amended budget that we have actually budgeted some funds in there to contribute towards some of the construction, whether it be to help finish out Legacy Knoll, or whether it be for a future project. So that's the great thing, is that we do have SPOS funds, and they are very healthy, but to try to do as much as we can without issuing additional debt or doing, another bond immediately or anytime soon. If we can contribute a little bit from general fund, that also will save the taxpayers, having to increase the debt service millage rate. So, and we're not increasing the millage rate, we're maintaining it where it is.
And it, just look, while you're talking about, I looked earlier at one of our largest counties is, and it's significantly higher. We're the lowest around here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we should be very proud of that, and proud that we're able to maintain that lower rate, but still address some of the growth and the needs that we have in the system. Okay, the next thing will be our amended budget that will also be advertised and presented. This is again based on the actual digest that we received and the growth from that and the additional revenue and updated expenditure numbers. Because of course, throughout the summer, we realized that there were needs as far as personnel and supplies and improvements to buildings. So there's an increase both with revenue and with expenditures. And you're going to see that the expenditures do exceed revenues, but please understand that is because we budgeted $2.5 million to contribute toward capital projects out of the general fund. And that might or might not be needed, but that's the only thing that is causing it to not be completely balanced. And we might not need it, but it's there. And it still maintains our ending fund balance of $25 million, which is where we need to be to avoid a 10. Any questions?
No, I think we're good. Rob wants to get to that cookie.
Mr. Claire Sanders, why do you have any questions? I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Dodge.
Thank you.
Mr. Schofield, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Brown and board. It's great to be able to speak with you for the first time. I'm certainly happy to be in Jackson County and be a part of this team. It's been a good transition. I think early on, I think the question was asked, what are you doing the first month? I said, the first month I'm not going to do a lot. I'm going to sit quiet and watch and listen and get used to what's going on. And it's been a great month as I've worked with the team here in Jackson County. So I first want to say that. Also, before I get started, do you want to talk about that Maysville incident where you got tackled trying to go in from a safety perspective?
I'll be happy to share the story. So we had a sub, I think it was on Tuesday at Maysville in the front office, and I entered the building, and the young lady at the front desk asked me what I was there for, and I told her I was coming to look and check out a few classrooms. She said, no, you're not. We don't allow that, and you won't be going by me. I said, yes, ma'am.
So I actually visited a little later, and she was telling me this story, so I sent him a text, and I said, we really need to check out Maysville. Their security's not good. I said, right here, walk straight in. Didn't even question it.
She was the raptor, I guess.
We were discussing that earlier, so I wanted to make sure I was very clear. Anyway, in operations, I want to provide some information from the operations standpoint, some updates, and certainly be able to ask some questions. But from a standpoint of where I stand with operations, it's very important for us to keep in mind safety, number one, keep in mind service, which is very evident in this system from the staff of operations. Professionalism is very important, and our mindset for excellence is going to be a standard that's in place that we will kind of continue. So I just want to throw those things out there. We're about supporting the educational programs, of course, and help serve the needs of our students, our staff, and of course, our community as well. So, you know, I'm an operations guy with an educational background. So I just know the support mechanism and the importance of that in the process. So many times as board members, as you well know, you're going to hear about the bad days. You're going to hear about the bad things that happen to people's transportation, and the day the air conditioning didn't work at one of our facilities, or maybe one day when the food wasn't the best. And those are the negative things you're going to say, but what I'm witnessing in the first month or the first week of school is a lot of positives. So I'll applaud that, and that'll be what we kind of press on. I'm a very positive individual, and I want to encourage that, but also know how we need to do things better and try to strive for that excellence. So going to some updates, and I'm going to try to speak for our directors who are present today, or tonight. But in school nutrition, in our July board meeting provisions, we talked about the Provision 2 application for that would allow us to provide breakfast free. That was approved by the state, so there's an update. I know you all have gotten that update, so we're going to make that public. So it allows free breakfast for all of our students. I want to be clear. The number of breakfasts and lunches served, we review that. Ms. Thorpe's reviewing that daily. It's about making sure our staffing needs are met at each of our facilities. That's always going to be in question this time of year. With the growth that we've seen in each of our facilities, with the growth, does it warrant 2 more staff members in our kitchens and our school nutrition departments? And I want everyone here to realize that we're analyzing the number of breakfasts served. The hardships from the pandemic is we didn't have good numbers of numbers served, number of breakfasts served and lunches served. So we're having to kind of start that process, and we're analyzing it. We're going to continue to monitor that, but staffing is linked to the number of meals served. Just because we have an increase in FTE sometimes doesn't warrant the need for new staffing. But as needs, or if we determine the need, we'll try to get those staff members there. Students are certainly becoming more familiar with their lunch numbers. I think that's the transition through day 5. They've not had to key in their numbers the last couple of years due to the pandemic and school nutrition guidelines. So that's new on a lot of our backup lines and things are caused by that process. Daily breakfast counts are between 3,200 and 3,400 throughout the system. Lunches are around 4,300. It looked like pretty steady throughout the last week. That's the first 5 days. I think we'll see some changes. Most parents will gladly fix lunch and get breakfast for the first 2 weeks, but as we know, after that, they're going to get tired of fixing lunches and breakfasts. And I think they'll be more comfortable serving or allowing their students to eat lunch. So, any questions of school nutrition from that operations side? I will have been in a lot of the kitchens, and I certainly applaud the staff and what they're doing to meet the needs there.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So what we're done with the leftover scraps? Tricky question, I know it's may not be prepared for, but so do we throw those foods away?
It's based on the guidelines for the type of food it is. If it's something that can be reserved at a later date based on, again, the type of food, it's possible that it's cooled and frozen per our HACCP plan and potentially reserved. But if it's not something that falls under those guidelines, then of course it's scrap. And then if we have a school that's doing any type of composting, we can also donate those items.
What about livestock? I know it's taking time, but there are ways to not throw that stuff away. I know. Yeah. So anyway,
I think certainly we can have that discussion, but there are guidelines from the school nutrition department of what's got to be followed there. So. Moving on to pupil transportation, I kid with Dr. Brown, but pupil transportation is my baby, okay? I'm a bus guy. It's just a passion. I love the puzzle, the pieces, but I also love what we're doing here in Jackson County. David Farmer does an excellent job leading that staff. The customer service is very evident. I listen to the radios once again in the mornings, and they are going out of their way to help parents and help students and circle back around these first few weeks, make sure we're meeting the needs of those families and trying to get our students to school in a good state of mind and ready to learn, but also safe. So it's been very evident. I want to talk a little bit about adding some routes. We're seeing some increases in numbers. The first 5 days, it's kind of leveled out. We're trying to get our routes evened out. That'll continue through the end of next week. But the staff, Mr. Farmer and staff, are adding routes as needed. I'm not keeping up with that on a daily basis, but I am getting those reports and are hearing about those needs. As ridership's increasing in some neighborhoods, we're just having to add routes. So with that being said, we've got to always look at our school fleet and keep that updated. Also applaud our technicians who have done a great job with that. But I want to just put on the horizon, or just put it out there, that in the amended FY22 budget, there was 16 buses allotted for Jackson County. State appropriated, legislative groups appropriated in that budget $88,110, so it's an incentive money. It's increased heavily this year. Also, there was some safety money incorporated with that, some opportunities to get collision avoidance technologies at 100% of the cost. Mr. Farmer and his team will take advantage of those. There were some other safety incentives. Seatbelts was one of them that we certainly have discussed. 3-point latch shoulder belts on school buses. Certainly wouldn't mind having that conversation and getting input from you all on thoughts on that. But those were some of the initiatives that, as a state director, I certainly initiated a lot of that conversation. The governor's office certainly supported it during those days. So there are some funds there that we'll tap into. Anytime we look at that, there's always, a new bus now may cost $125, kind of standard. So understand the increasing cost is also affecting those purchases. So we'll be looking at that, looking at possibly purchasing those buses off state contract in the future as we have needs. The lead time on new school buses is also 12 months now, or even longer in some manufacturers. So it's a nationwide issue. So anyway, those are some updates. We always look at driver shortage issues. I think I don't like to even talk about school bus drivers, but across the state, that's certainly a conversation. Mr. Farmer and his staff have done a great job keeping ours up, and with the support of you all, with some incentives and being able to pay the bus drivers at different hourly rates, different hourly schedules, has really helped us tremendously. And so I applaud you all and him for that. But we're short of a few drivers that we're able to keep up. When all the extracurricular activities begin in the next few weeks, that certainly puts a strain on pupil transportation because it takes drivers off routes. I'm big about getting those kids home first because that's our goal, getting them home safely. And when we take regular drivers off the route, sometimes that infringes on our safety. So from a safety perspective, that's pretty tough on those types of things just from a background perspective. But I also understand the need to get kids to extracurricular activities as well.
Do any of our coaches drive?
Yes, we do have one in particular that drives, Mr. Powers. He is very good about driving his team and filling them.
In the past, we've offered incentives to teachers and to coaches to drive.
Can we give Jason something for driving? Especially if he's the only one?
I know that the school works with the coach and sub. If he were to drive another trip, from what I understand, say it's outside of his realm of coaching responsibilities. Like Ken said, he said it all through one time. The biggest thing is figuring out time for spiritual teachers' responsibilities. So I look for them, if they can drive them strips on the roads. Also, too, I mentioned activity buses that come in very handy for any trips that are 14.
Yes. I think those activity buses are well underutilized at times. I think folks should be encouraged a little more strongly to use them, especially when it comes to these country club sports. And I say that in the back end kind of way.
Smaller teams.
That's right. Boys and girls, and how they split up, JV and varsity, and the folks in the bus there to they're there as long as they're at school almost. And we can cure some of that with utilizing. That's why we purchased those. And you don't have to have CDLs to drive. So
We use them pretty heavy with those. In fact, for me, I think it's something I have to schedule that because most time we're gone for that. So,
I believe they're being used. I didn't mean that my statement to mean that they weren't. But it's personal experience. I give it anybody one of those one time, and I think she could have. And it would have probably been better for a lot of kids and so. Thank you.
Well, and it could have been a scheduling problem too. I mean, it's a possibility, because I had understood that we really needed another activity bus. So, I don't know.
I think we continue to analyze those issues. Like I said, I think Mr. Farmer and his team, I'm impressed with the way they analyze things. I think they keep safety as a priority, and to me that's important. So it's about getting our kids to and from safety. Any other comments or questions from the board? Thank you. Moving on, I want to talk about facilities right quick, just to move to that next segment. And I would like to announce that we did have a chair or desk for every student as we began school, and I've not heard any reports that we did not have that. So I applaud the efforts of Mr. Patton and his team as they were prepared for the beginning of the year, because we've got a lot of modular classrooms and they learning cottages, I should say. I apologize for that terminology, but a lot of learning cottages, and they were working their behinds off the last week to prepare for that. So at this time, I'll ask Mr. Patton to come up and give us an update on the construction projects that are in place.
So I don't know if you've been by Legacy Knoll lately, but it's starting to look like something. We got the three-story addition, or the three-story section of the building is erected now. And the actual starting on the roof. We've got MEP starting rough ends on the second floor and overhead on the first floor. Will be our own raised slabs will be done this month, and so that was tracking very well right now. East High,
keep tracking.
We are, man. We'll actually have blocked in a couple of weeks going, and we're scheduled to lay about 20,000 a day. So it's fast track. If you've been by East High in the last week or so, the field looks great. I gotta say the blue and silver. I mean that might be my favorite one yet. It looks really good. We got the field part is done other than the goal post, and then the track will start next week. That's about, the guys tell us about a 3-week process. So, that one actually, weather permitting, it's finishing up a little earlier than what we expected.
Look great.
It looks, yeah, it's sharp.
Here it is. When's the first game on that?
The 16th.
September the 16th?
Yes. Yes. I think they have a community pep rally maybe on the 15th.
We got some blue and gray for you.
Well, I do need it. I would be happy to go. I'm really interested in going, and I want to see it. I think I'm just excited about this.
It's really great. I mean, it's turned out the excitement from everybody around it. It's been pretty cool. It's good to see that going over there.
Both, I'm gonna have to wear some of yours. I can't eat that cookie right.
That's good. I put a list of some of the projects we've completed this summer, just to keep you aware. And then there's the future projects that some of, this definitely not all of them, but some of them that you'll see come up starting this year as well. So if anybody has any questions about any of that,
Thanks for what you've done, especially some of the east side schools over there.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. There's one on if y'all scroll up to the last picture on there, I want to thank the Jackson County Board of Commissioners as well. The road work in front of Gum Springs and West Middle they jumped on that, and I mean, it was completed almost overnight, it seemed like. And the benefit from that for those two schools has been tremendous. It's truly helped out a lot over there, so I want to thank you for that.
I too appreciate the Board of Commissioners. That picture you see, the arrow right there, is under my car every morning when I take my grandkids to school.
Yeah.
And the advantage of that is the cars can continue to go on the
Absolutely.
right as opposed to backing up to the entrance of Traditions in a single lane. So it's a great improvement, not only for us grandparents who are dropping kids off, but the community that has to go up to go to work.
They
don't have to sit in line waiting for me to go.
Yeah. So that was tremendous. I didn't put it on here, but they did some more speed bumps in front of Jackson County High School as well at the crosswalks, and those were really needed. We want to thank them for doing that. And of course, the Skelton Road project just started now as well. So, a lot of great partnership going on.
Josh, can I ask what you're planning to do at Gum Springs, expanding the playground?
Oh, so it's really the green space by the softball field. We're gonna expand them into a little more of that green space there.
Play equipment or give them more green grass?
Just some grass. Yeah, some more running room. The PTO has purchased some more play equipment that will go up next to where the shade structure and all those things are. This is just really some more running room for the kids. They're getting pretty tired.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Like I said, Mr. Patton and his team have done a tremendous job getting this open. They continue to work very hard to make repairs to schools as those come up, as we get calls and maintenance items. They're working very diligently. So, have a couple other items we need to discuss and bring forth. One is a purchase agreement, final agreement for the Southside Elementary Facility that is being purchased by the church at Southside. And this agreement was provided to us earlier this week. As you all hopefully had an opportunity to review the final payoff, which would include, this would be it, was $1,623,000. Let me see what that number is, $483.84. So we met. I was not familiar with this agreement, but this was in the works prior to me coming on board. So met Ms. Dodge and kind of went over those numbers to assure us that was the final amount. This was provided to us by our attorney earlier this week, so he asked for us to present it to you all for approval Monday if possible.
Any questions? Will, you were part of the board when that decision was made. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
They have held up there in the barn. So.
And I think I may have skipped one item. One item on the agenda was the talk about our advanced funded project that was maybe mentioned earlier. Capital outlay is something I'm very familiar with. And as I came on board, one of the first items we looked at was looking at our entitlement sheet, to see how many funds we had, to look at our needs. And we got a little creative. This is fun for me, for my own world. But our entitlement was not very much. We had earned about $1.2 million in entitlement this past year. Our fund balance or accumulated entitlement was about 2.5 or maybe around 2 million. So total it was 3.5 million. With that amount of money, we were not going to be able to, really apply for state funds for a new facility. Or we had to make some, we had to consider things. So as I got to looking at our options, one of the options was to look at advanced funding. And advanced funding, the state will advance fund a capital outlay project in 20-2-260 in the law. They will do an advanced funded project if 5 years of your annual entitlement plus your accumulated, the state funds in that project must be greater than that amount. So you take 1.2 times 5, add the 2 million. We had to get the state funds in our project above that. I think that added up to about 8.6 or 8.7 million. So, Pat's pretty creative. So Pat tried to find need, get to that point to see if it was a target that we could reach. And lo and behold, we were able to show the need in our plan. We are able to advance fund a K-5 facility is what we're looking at. That's kind of the next project on our project list. So we were able to get advanced funding. I certainly communicated this with the state, our local rep, our local facility consultant, also talked with others through the process. And it appears we're able to do that. Total funding is about $9 million that we would be eligible for. This will be fairly large. This could be a $30-35 million project. We don't know that. Don't know that term in concrete, but we've got to understand this incentivizes us. Otherwise, we're going to either have to wait 5 years or 4 years out to get that amount of money. This way, we pay it back with entitlement, future entitlement until that money's paid off. So it could be 3 or 4 years before we pay that off. Because this also helps you pay off your entitlement, that balance as well. So it's a win-win for the system if we choose to go that direction. If we can begin this project tomorrow, or we can begin it a year from now, or we can begin it 2 years from now and still have that, those funds will be available to apply to that project. So anyway, we want to kind of put that on the table for consideration, those applications reviewed to the state by August 15th. So we've got another week or so. I probably can talk them in and give us a little bit of room, but that's the due date. They have to present that to the governor's office by September 1.
So when you say payback, those are not monies that we'll actually receive. It's coming out of what they would have given us, kind of.
So the way this works, there's a kind of a pot of imaginary money out there. Okay, and as a system, we're able to draw that down as money for a capital project. That we're eligible capital projects. This would be an eligible project. And so, as we begin that project, as it's analyzed and submitted to the state, they'll reimburse us for eligible. So we can get that money up front, so they can reimburse us up to 90%. They'll hold 10% back until the project's complete. They'll reimburse up to 90%, the $9 million. And then it will be paid back with future entitlement. So there's no money out of our pockets to pay it back. It's state funded. Otherwise, you would have to accumulate it in that imaginary bank account.
How long can you?
Well, I mean, so an advanced funded project should be paid off within the 5 years. We're gonna pay it off quicker than that.
And then can we apply for the process again?
Then you can apply for the next, that's what we're trying to do, is pay it off fast.
Yes.
And then apply for the next project that's on our list. That's on the radar screen. That's good thinking, yes. Okay? I can promise you, as a board, we'll be on top of that. That's
Well, I can promise you, as a board, we're gonna want an update.
But we'll be glad to do that. So I think the decision and the conversation is, should we move forward? We can submit the application, that would have to be approved by the board after it's submitted back to us from the state. So that would be coming before you probably in September, even October for approval. Okay?
How long do we have to use that?
5 years. 5 years, it's got to be used within 5 years' time. Okay? Very good. Other questions? The final item on our list is to get board acknowledgement or approval on the completion of Jackson County High School. This is a certificate of award that just needs to be signed by Mr. Clarsey and Dr. Brown. It is acknowledging that the project is complete. This will get us the final funds on the Jackson County High project from the state. So this document will be used to get the final 10 after we receive the 90%. We're trying to get it on in our file to get it to the state as early as possible. Any questions? I think that ends my comments. I sure do appreciate you all.
Thank you. Well, with that final report, Dr. Brown, you don't have anything further. We've read through our agenda, so we'll see everyone here another time. At 6:30, we look forward to South Jackson's highlights, South Jackson Elementary, looking forward to that. And with that said, we're going to stand adjourned. Thank you for everyone coming.